Hey guys, how's it going? First, yes, I changed my hair. What do you think? If you're curious about the inspiration, thanks for watching by Cavanaugh. I'll leave her channel link down below. It is kind of giving bowl cut, and I kind of dig it. Today's video is going to be the author tag, kind of a little get to know me. I don't actually know who originally created this tag, but I saw it recently on Bennet's channel, so I'm going to leave her video linked down below as well as all of the questions if you want to do this tag yourself. There are 10 questions, so let's just jump right into it. Question number 1, where is your favorite place to write? It's gonna sound really boring, but at my desk, in my office. I don't like writing on the couch or in bed, anything like that. I need a table and lots of space. I need room for my things. I need room for a cat or two. I want to have room to stretch out and have my multiple water bottles that I always have with me. Feeling like I don't have space just stresses me out and makes it way too hard to write. I also don't like going anywhere to write. I love the idea of writing at a cafe or the library or something like that, but I don't actually enjoy doing it. I don't like leaving my house. I like being at home where I'm comfy and cozy and I have a blanket on my lap and I have a cat asleep beside me and I'm in pajama pants. So writing at my desk, you just can't beat it. Sorry about that. Comment jumped down and moved the camera. Question number 2, coffee or tea? Between those two options, tea. I don't drink coffee, but honestly, I'm just not a hot drink person in general. If I am in the mood for a hot drink, it's either a tea or a hot chocolate, but I much prefer a cold drink, and most of the time I'm drinking water. So I will say tea, but I don't really have super strong feelings. Question number 3, favorite book of all time. It's so hard to narrow down a favorite, so I'm not going to overthink it, because then I'm going to keep coming up with more books that might be on the list. The first one that popped into my head, and the first one that always pops into my head whenever I think about favorite books, when I think about this book, I always think about it as my favorite book or one of my favorite books, etc. And that is Dreadnought by April Daniels, also Sovereign, the sequel. There might be a third book someday. Oh. I've talked about this book so many times, but it is a trans superhero story. Our main character, Danny, is a closeted trans girl. When the superhero Dreadnought dies right in front of her, she inherits his powers. And part of the Dreadnought ability is that it transforms you into your ideal peak version of yourself. So the previous Dreadnought, for example, he got super muscular buff, kind of the typical superhero physique. When Danny inherits the powers, she transitions. And she's now grappling with all of that, essentially being forced out of the closet, and now her homophobic and transphobic father is trying to turn her back and fix her. Her friends are treating her weird. Everyone around her is trying to figure out what happened. And on top of all of that, she now has superpowers, and the top supervillains are after her. Like, I'm planning on rereading this at the end of July, and I am so excited. This book is a 10 out of 10, highly recommended. I think it is my favorite book of all time. Oops, I dropped a dinosaur. Question number 4, NaNoWriMo, yes or no? Simple answer, yes. To break down that answer a little bit, NaNoWriMo the challenge, yes. NaNoWriMo the original organization, yes. NaNoWriMo what it became and its promotion of AI and its turning a blind eye to grooming and predatory behavior against children, hell no. Just so we're all on the same page. But as a writing challenge, yes, NaNoWriMo is always so inspiring to me. I love the way it brought the community together for so many years. I love how even after it crashed and burned, we still all celebrate writing in November. I think that's a beautiful thing. NaNoWriMo is how I wrote my first book back in 2013. NaNoWriMo is what inspired and motivated me for my comeback when I was really struggling to get back on that writing horse this last year. NaNoWriMo is just such an integral part of my writing experience, even though I obviously do not support what the company devolved into, what the new owners did, the directions they took things in. Hard stance against that. But NaNoWriMo, what it used to stand for, NaNoWriMo as a concept, yes. Question number 5, what genre would you write if you had no restrictions? I'm interpreting restrictions as like time, resources, brain capacity for writing at any given moment, that kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, I don't have any restrictions with writing. This isn't my job. I'm not under contract for anything like that. I can do whatever the hell I want. So my answer would be fantasy, which is what I almost always write. But to get specific, if there were no restrictions, like if I had unlimited time, unlimited brain power, unlimited research ability. I would write like an epic fantasy. I love world building. I love getting super deep into the creation of a world. I would love to create my own language. I would love to have like maps and maps and maps. I would love to have a whole atlas. I would love to someday just write an entire encyclopedia about a world that I just made up in my head. That would be so much fun. But obviously that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of brain power, a lot of research, a lot of like fiddling and nitty gritty, and a lot of planning. So if there were no restrictions whatsoever, if I could just sit down and write and be able to write and not have to worry about paying my bills or any responsibilities. Epic fantasy with an encyclopedia companion. That would be my dream. Question number 6. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? Hands down, teleportation. Now, you might be thinking, as a homebody who's socially anxious and hates leaving the house, why would you want to be able to teleport and go anywhere in the world you want? Because I could always get home. I could be anywhere doing anything and be able to come back to the safety of my own home in a blink. Like, that's the dream. I could live all alone in the middle of the woods and I wouldn't have to worry about any of the logistics of getting food and supplies and all of that stuff. And maybe this is the finance nerd in me talking. I could get a job in a really remote city that pays super, super well because the cost of living is so ridiculous. But I could live in a little cabin alone in the woods where I don't have a super high cost of living. You know what I mean? That would be so great. Even just little day-to-day things. Oh, I want to get groceries? Okay, I'm going to teleport to this one grocery store on the other side of the country that has grapes on sale for this unbeatable price, and then just teleport back home. If there's a used bookstore on the other side of the country that I really want to go to because they have a really specific book I want, no problem, teleport. Any of my other writer friends have like an author event or something super cool like that, I could go. It would just be so amazing. And every time I think of this question, I get so excited about all the possibilities and then have to remember that unfortunately I live in reality, and I can't do any of these things. Question number 7, favorite author. I think I'm going to have to narrow this down to my top 3. I don't think I can narrow it down to 1. I would say Juno Dawson, because I love almost everything I've ever read by her. The only thing I've ever read by her and not given 5 stars was Hollow Pike, but that was quite YA. I think it was her debut or one of her first novels. And I think that honestly, if I would have read that in high school, it would have been one of my favorites. But I absolutely adore Clean. I love Meat Market. I love Wonderland. And her books always stick with me. Like, I think about Clean all the time. I absolutely adore her. I absolutely adore her writing. So she's definitely an easy favorite. Number 2, I'm going to say Garth Nix. Even though his books aren't always my favorites, 8 out of 10, I always really enjoy them. And I love the way that he creates worlds. I started reading the Keys to the Kingdom series when I was like 10 years old or something like that. And those books were the first ones that I read and was able to think of them as writing, not just stories, if that makes sense. And I actually have a specific memory of reading Grim Tuesday, the second book in the series, and they're talking about this other world and the people there, and he calls them denizens. And I didn't know what the word meant. And then when I looked it up, I started noticing the writing. I started noticing word choices he used. I started noticing world building elements and actually thinking about like the choices. I started thinking about writing as a process. You know what? Garth Nix might have been what inspired me to write. So I think that it's very fair to give him the number 2 spot. Number 3 is tough. Charles Dickens is a contender because I love his stories so much and he has such a sense of like comfort and familiarity for him. He's one of my comfort readers. I was reading Charles Dickens ever since I was a really small kid. I enjoy the vast majority of his books. J.R.R. Tolkien is up there. Lord of the Rings is my first memory of reading. That's another one that I used to read with my dad. And even rereading it throughout the years as a teenager, as an adult, rereading it so many times. I love the way that he creates worlds. I love how rich and deep he is. I love that he'll spend like 3 pages describing a friggin' tree. I love that stuff. But I think that those are just sentimental, honorable mentions. But I think my 3rd spot is gonna have to go to Brandon Sanderson. My first impression of Brandon Sanderson was the Wheel of Time series. And when I realized that Robert Jordan had passed away, and I remember thinking that there's no way the ending of the series is going to be satisfying. This world is too big. There are too many moving parts. There are so many threads. There's no way that anybody else could pick up all of these pieces and continue this series without the original author. Like, I had zero hopes whatsoever. And then I read the last couple of books of the series and was blown away. I thought that he did such a great job of taking over the series. I thought that he did a great job of staying true to the world that Robert Jordan created. I was worried that it was going to be some stranger that comes in and completely changes everything, ruins everything, tries to do their own thing with it. But it just felt like he finished this series with such a level of respect for the original author that I really admired that. And I was so impressed. And then I picked up the Mistborn series because I thought, okay, what is this guy really like? And had an absolute blast. I loved that series. Everything else I've read by him, I've absolutely adored. And I lent my dad the Mistborn trilogy. And it was such a fun moment because my whole life, my dad is the reader in our family. And obviously we share that love of reading. He's always read with me. And so many times throughout my life, my dad has read... Why am I getting emotional? My dad has read an amazing book and then immediately wanted to share it with me. Because my dad does not have friends. Like, literally, my dad has one friend and he married her. You know? My dad doesn't socialize. My dad has never had anybody to share books with. So, growing up, even when I was really little and learning how to read, he realized that he could share that love with me. And that's why I read Lord of the Rings for the first time when I was 4. Because it was my dad's all-time favorite book. And as a little 4-year-old, even though Lord of the Rings, not a book for 4-year-olds, but it was his favorite and he wanted someone to share it with, and he chose to share that with me. And my whole life, my dad has been sharing his favorite books with me, and I've been getting to read his favorite books, and that's always been a really great bonding moment with us. And when I read the Mistborn trilogy and was telling my dad about them, and he asked if he could borrow the books, it was the best feeling in the world to be able to be the one to recommend a book to my dad and have it become one of his all-time favorite books, and have Brandon Sanderson become one of his all-time favorite authors. Like, it was such a cool moment. So I think Brandon Sanderson has to be my third pick because I love his books, I love his stories, I've always enjoyed every single experience with them. I love his writing, I love the way that he finished one of my other all-time favorite series, and there's all of these sentimental reasons. So I think Brandon Sanderson totally deserves that third spot. That was a long-winded answer, but this is a get-to-know-me tag. And you should know I love to ramble. Question number 8. What kind of music do you listen to when you write? Definitely a variety. I used to only be able to listen to instrumental music, no lyrics, but lately I'm just not finding it as distracting. I really like listening to movie scores, I like listening to video game soundtracks, epic battle music, compilations, stuff like that. But I also like just putting my regular music on and just having it on shuffle and listening to whatever happens to come on. And a lot of times I'll make a playlist for just songs that give me the same vibes as whatever it is I'm working on. But there's not a specific genre, a specific style of music, anything like that I really gravitate towards. Question number 9. If you could live anywhere, where would it be? So, fun fact about me, I have always wanted to live in Nunavut for a year, ever since I was a little kid. Logistically, very difficult. Financially, very difficult. But I would love to just spend a year in Nunavut. But again, if I could teleport, it would be fine because I could just teleport to like the grocery store here in New Brunswick where things are not nearly as expensive. Very unrealistic dream, but long term, I would love to live in the middle of the woods. I mean, I kind of do right now. I live in New Brunswick, so we're just surrounded by trees. Like, there's a forest 2 minutes that way, there's another forest like 10 minutes that way. Like, I am surrounded by trees. I live 2 houses away from a park that is mostly just trees and a little bit of playground equipment. So I am pretty close to living in the perfect place for me. But if we're talking unrealistic goals, I would love to live in the forest, no people, solitude and quiet. And as far as specifically where, honestly, I'd probably stick to New Brunswick. I really love our climate here. I love long winters. I love heavy snow. I love all of that stuff. Now that I think about it, actually, because then I'd still be close enough to visit my family. I'd be able to come into town and like do grocery shopping and stuff. So I think that honestly, My realistic answer would probably be, I mean, I'd like to be kind of deeper into the forest. So if I could live anywhere, it would probably be about 20 minutes that way. I'm basically already there. And finally, question number 10, what do you do when you get writer's block? I answered this in another take recently, so I won't repeat myself too much, but my main things are journaling about whatever the problem is. If there's a specific thing that I'm stuck on, I will sit down and just stream of consciousness, type about why it's not working, what I'm trying, what I hate about it, what part is getting me stuck, and just see what happens. And I type it in a very chaotic and unorganized way. I'll usually have like 3 or 4 paragraphs and I'm jumping between them to kind of keep each thought separate. Like I'll be on one line of thought, have a tangent, so I start a new paragraph, have another thought about this, go back, think of a different solution, make a new paragraph. Sometimes I have to color code it because I'm talking to myself in the document and it's getting kind of muddled of what's actually part of the problem, what I'm saying to myself. I'll interrupt myself mid-sentence when another thought pops into my head. It's very difficult to read. Next time I have one, maybe I'll actually save the document so I can show you guys sometimes, and I'll make a whole video about my brainstorm process for how I get out of writer's block. But it's a really good way to just get my thoughts in order, and then as I start to make little progress, I can kind of reread what I have and ignore all of the other jumbled thoughts that are mixed in and be able to kind of follow a coherent train of thought. Why did I ever think I didn't have ADHD? And usually, eventually, that'll get me unstuck enough that I fixed the problem and can start moving forward again. And that is it. That was the author tag. Like I said, all of the questions are going to be linked down below if you want to do this yourself. Definitely let me know so I can check it out. And I think that Emma made a playlist of other people who did this tag, so if you want to check that out, feel free. And even if you don't make videos, feel free to answer the questions as a comment. I think that's totally fair and fun. I liked this. I thought this was fun. I love the casual little get to know me type tags. But that will be it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, please hit the like button to let me know, and subscribe to stay up to date with the rest of my videos. I post new videos once a week, usually reading or writing related. So I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!